All right, we are back from our holiday break, and we're going to talk about Obsidian plugins today. We're getting back to our series. We've been doing a series of Obsidian episodes on app stories, and we've got a ways to go yet, because what we haven't done yet is we haven't talked about third-party plugins. We talked about the ones that come with Obsidian, but we haven't done third-party plugins, and there are an awful lot. I went through my list over the holidays. I explored a lot of new ones. I know Federico's been doing a lot of the same, so we're going to talk about those. I also want to thank our sponsor going into this, which is our sponsors are MindNode, Wealthfront, and Wix. How you doing, Federico?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, John?
I'm very good. It's great to be back. It's great to be back and talking about Obsidian again. I know, we're going to round this out fairly soon, but I think we've probably got at least a couple of episodes left in us.
Yep.
Because there's so much ground to cover, and we ought to just probably dive in. I guess before we go into the specifics of the plugins, though, did you get time this over the holidays to try some new ones or discard some old ones? I mean, what's your kind of approach with plugins?
I have, so we spoke about like some of the things that we've done over the holidays in the App Stories Plus pre-show. It's like about 15 minutes on our experiments over the holidays, so make sure to subscribe and listen to that part. But yeah, I've spent some time cleaning up things, removing plugins that I no longer use, removing CSS snippets, which we really haven't talked about yet. Maybe we should at some point. But yes, I've disabled a few plugins that I was not really using because I like to clean things up. Don't try and have crap flying around in Obsidian. But yeah, I've also spent some time checking out new plugins again, and you contributed with a list of plugins, some of which I was not familiar with. Other plugins that I've discovered, on the Obsidian community, there's the excellent obsidianroundup.org newsletter that I subscribe to, that I read almost religiously every week. And that's always a fantastic source for like plugin updates and new plugins. So yeah, I would say that I've removed a few, but I've installed more than I've removed, I think.
So have I. And I think it is a good idea to go through and prune that list of plugins once in a while, because the one thing you have to be careful with, and this goes for CSS snippets too, is you have to be careful not to use things that somehow conflict with one another, because they can at times have adverse effects on each other if they're not kind of designed to work particularly well together. But by and large, I haven't had that problem very often, but I do like to just kind of get rid of the things I'm not using to keep that list kind of neat and tidy and keep everything running smoothly. All right, Federico, I think we're going to go through these in alphabetical order. And that's only because that's how they're listed in the app. And I went through my list of plugins, because you can go to the preferences and you can go to the section on community plugins, and you'll see all the ones that you've got installed. And the very first one at the top of my list is Admonition.
Okay, you got to tell me about this. Is one of the plugins that I still haven't checked out. You got to tell me all about this.
All right. So this is for creating basically call-out boxes in HTML. So it's a special syntax, and all it is like so I was going through this process of reevaluating a bunch of my workflows and bringing them into Obsidian. And it's a fairly complex system. So one of the things I did was I used Admonition, so that at the top of some of the documents that I generate, I have a little note to myself to remind myself why it is the way it is and what I need to do. It's like a checklist almost. Now, eventually that'll all become habit once I get more used to my system. But this lets me create a little thing at the top that when I see it in live preview, it just says note. And then it has some text in there that's my reminder to myself. And they have a whole bunch of canned ones you can do that are like, I think developers use this for like bug reports and alerts and other things you can create for yourselves and use different colors. But I use just a pretty standard note to self type of format that's blue and sits at the top of the document. And it's just a kind of like a sticky note inside an Obsidian document.
I see. So it's basically like sort of reminiscent of the call out boxes that we have on Mac Stories for some articles. Like, I see. So, and you've been using this like in what kinds of notes? Like how, like for like reminders for like, I don't know, when you're preparing a podcast, for example, and, instructions and steps to follow, that sort of thing?
That sort of thing. And also I have some notes that I generate automatically every week. And then I have shortcuts that I want to run against those notes. So I'll have a note at the top reminding me which shortcut it is that I need to run and, what context I need to run it in. That kind of thing. Like, what's the next step after I have this document prepared?
Nice. The next one I want to mention is called Advanced Mobile Toolbar. So this plugin it lets you extend the number of options that you get in the toolbar that sits above the keyboard on the iPhone and iPad. It's primarily a mobile plugin because the mobile toolbar is only available on iPhone and iPad. By default, you're limited to, I believe, 6 or 8 options, like a single row of commands that you can pin on top of the keyboard via the built-in default mobile toolbar core plugin. But this one, it lets you double or triple the number of commands that you can pin as icons on top of the keyboard. Meaning, for example, you can have 2 rows of commands available as quick icons on top of the keyboard on your iPhone or your iPad. And you can choose between like having a standard layout or having a column layout that makes it easier to rearrange those commands. And the way you use this is very simple. You keep adding commands in the default mobile toolbar settings page in Obsidian. Then you go to the advanced mobile toolbar plugin page. And for each command, you can assign a custom icon. You can choose from a list of built-in icons. You can search those icons by name. And you can give all those plugins a custom icon, if you will. And for example, I have now 2 rows of commands via advanced mobile toolbar on my iPhone. You can also choose to always display the mobile toolbar even when the keyboard is not shown. So that, for example, if you dismiss the keyboard, you will still get these 2 rows of commands at the bottom of the screen on your iPhone. Sometimes, I should say, this plugin can be somewhat buggy. Sometimes icons do not stick. Sometimes you get an error message that says failed to load advanced mobile toolbar, but it still works. And the developer is very active with updates to this plugin. So that's why I wanted to mention it, because it's really useful to have 2 rows of icons on top of the keyboard.
It really is, especially if you're someone like me who's using a Stream Deck for a lot of Obsidian commands. Obviously I don't have the Stream Deck when I'm on my iPad or iPhone. So having those buttons there that act in a similar way as shortcuts to different commands is really handy and useful. All right, I'm going to mention Advanced URI, and this is an extension of the built-in URL scheme for Obsidian. I don't use this a ton, but it is very handy to have once in a while because you'll find situations that the existing URL scheme just doesn't address. I think, for instance, one of them is something like, for instance, opening workspaces, I believe, isn't covered by the existing URL scheme. But this advanced URI plugin allows you to do that. You can also use it with other plugins, things like Templater and that sort of thing. So it really allows for much more complex actions to be performed on your documents.
Yeah, it's wild that one of the things you can do with Obsidian is enhance the URL scheme of Obsidian itself. Like, it gives you an idea of the kind of freedom that you have with plugins. The next one I want to mention is abbreviated as BRAT. That's B-R-A-T. It's
this one I didn't know. Yeah, okay. This one I wasn't familiar with.
Yeah, this one is awesome. So this one is the official name is Obsidian 42. Beta Reviewers Auto Update Tool, and that would be BRAT. Beta Reviewers Auto Update Tool. This one is amazing because it lets you install beta plugins and themes from GitHub by just pasting the GitHub link of those plugins and themes. Nice. So without having to do the manual installation of like downloading a zip file from GitHub, unpacking it, and then using working copy, for example, to manually paste that folder in the Obsidian Vault, you can just open the BRAT settings, paste the name of a repo where the plugin is stored, and it does all of that for you. Then in the future, you can run a command called update plugins, and BRAT takes care of updating all those beta plugins for you. It really is incredible, especially because there's a ton of plugins that developers are building that are not yet available as community plugins in the community section of Obsidian. And the only way to install them is via GitHub. But with this plugin, you can have a UI for that makes it so much easier to install those plugins and to keep them up to date.
That's really nice. I'm going to go take a look at that later today. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by MindNode. It's the new year, and I bet your head is spinning full of ideas. There are plenty of things you want to achieve and create. Maybe you're thinking about starting that novel, or you have a great idea for a recipe. Perhaps it's time to dust off that old French textbook so that you arrive in Paris with a few words more than just bonjour. Or maybe you're finally going to create your very first app. Whatever you want to achieve in 2022, MindNode can help you achieve it. The app has been featured as Apple's Editor's Choice and App of the Day, and of course recommended by us here at MacStories. MindNode is the most delightful mind mapping and outlining app for macOS, iOS, and iPadOS. It's the easiest way to capture your thoughts and to see your idea grow, transform, and materialize. Create an outline for your novel and use tags, connections, and notes to add more information, relationships, and understand where your story is going. Start planning your next course and use tasks to help you stay on track with what you've learned. Visualize everything you need to develop your app and start approaching things step by step. Powerful features like visual tags, focus mode, notes, and tasks help you get even more done and capture more information. And you can even use shortcuts on iOS and macOS to import, share, and create documents. MindNode has even created a shortcut that can automatically transform a Wikipedia article into a mind map. Just try it out by heading on over to mindnode.com/page/appstories. Look, the best way to experience MindNode is to try it for yourself. So just go over to the App Store, either the Mac App Store or the iOS App Store, and search for MindNode. That's one word, and download it for free. Or head on over to mindnode.com to learn even more. You can try out all of MindNode's Plus features for free with a 2-week trial. MindNode. What's on your mind? Our thanks to MindNode for their support of the show.
Let me mention the next one because I think I maybe... I think now you're using this one too. I've been using
I just started recently.
Nice. Okay. So this plugin I've been using forever. It's called Buttons. So Buttons, it lets you create buttons in Obsidian. There's a custom syntax. Again, it's a little snippet of code that you drop into one of your notes. And then when you hit the preview mode, or if you're using the latest version of Obsidian, by the way, that came out over a holiday break, live preview is now available. And I want to talk about live preview at some point. But basically, this custom snippet of code will be rendered as an interactive button in Obsidian. And these buttons, they can do different things. Like you can have a button that opens a note. You can have a button that appends some text somewhere. You can have a button that changes one of your front matter metadata tags in a note. It's very well documented. There's even an API for other plugin developers to interact with buttons. It's really well done, and there's a ton that you can do in terms of like styling buttons, giving them a custom text label. And there's also like a UI in settings to build your buttons. So you can choose, right, the way that you can build a button in Obsidian. But yeah, there's a variety of commands that you can associate with the button, and you have total control over the custom syntax. And then when you hit the preview mode, you will see this nice visual button that you can click, and it does something. This is part of what I mentioned in the pre-show, and I will share the details of how I've been using buttons for my YouTube Watch Later system that I have built in Obsidian, featuring data view, cards, and interactive buttons.
Very nice. Well, one of the things that I've been doing in my dashboard notes is keeping track of kind of my ongoing documents for a particular week. And every week that includes a collection of sections for Mac Stories Weekly. And so one of the things that I do at the beginning of the week now is I auto-generate the templates for those using shortcuts. Then I go into my dashboard where I happen to have a button, and I click it, and it automatically runs a shortcut that I then puts on the clipboard links to all those documents that I just paste right into that section. And now I have a quick table of contents to get right to those when I'm ready to start writing them. So it's that kind of thing that, it's just nice to have that button there instead of having to recall the exact shortcut name. I just click it and I've got everything I need.
Nice.
Federico, let's talk about Calendar. I don't think you use Calendar,
no, I do
you?
not. I do not.
Okay, I have been using Calendar, and I don't think really in the way that it was maybe originally intended, but Calendar is a plugin that a lot of people who take daily notes use because you can click on the day, and if you don't already have a daily note generated, you can generate it right there from the calendar view, and the calendar actually shows you dots underneath the days to let you know whether you have a daily note set up for that day or not. You can also from this couple it with another plugin by the same developer called Periodic Notes, which is another daily notes type of plugin, but it also allows you to do weekly notes, monthly notes, and yearly notes. You can go get a little crazy with the periodic notes, but I do like to do a weekly note because I found that with my dashboard, I was starting to plan out my week inside it, and it was taking up a lot of space. And having a link to a weekly note is kind of a nice place to do that without taking up all that space. So I've been experimenting with that, where you can display the number, the week numbers next to the rows on the calendar, click on it, and it'll generate a weekly note just like it would a daily note. And I've been using that as kind of an overview of my week and what I want to get done on which days.
Very nice. Okay. I really should play around with this at some point. I never, this kind of workflows in Obsidian, like daily notes, calendars, I was never able to stick with them, but we'll see, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I mentioned a plugin to stick any Obsidian command on top of the keyboard. The next one is a plugin to stick any Obsidian command to the top of the page, to the very top of the window.
Yeah, this is another one that I'm not using that I need to use.
Yeah, so this one is called Customizable Page Header. And that's what it does. It lets you stick any command in form of in the shape of a custom icon to the top of the Obsidian window. Right up there in the title bar, there's a place for Obsidian to place commands. You probably have seen icons for like close this panel or I don't know, or more options, which is like the context menu. And with this plugin, you can stick any other command up there. I believe on iPhone, you will be able to see 4 or 5 commands with the customizable page header. And it's really useful if you want to have, like, for example, a button that reopens a workspace or a button that invokes the file explorer, for example, stuff like that. Any command you want to put in there, you can. And it's nice to combine this with advanced mobile toolbar because maybe you can do what I do, which is above the keyboard, you keep commands that are related to text editing. And at the top of the page, you keep commands that are like more about the layout, more about the workspace that you're using. So customizable page header does one thing and does it extremely well.
Oh, that's fantastic. I definitely have to do that. I think that's a good way to organize it too. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Wealthfront. The beginning of the new year is a great time to finally start things like adopting habits, reassessing your productivity, or thinking about your financial future. Or maybe you don't plan on getting off your couch in 2022. Well, you can still do a useful thing while you sit there by checking out wealthfront.com. You can start investing in no time with Wealthfront's classic portfolio, or make it your own with things that you care about, like socially responsible funds, technology, or hundreds of other investments. Wealthfront is designed by financial experts to help you turn your good ideas into great investments without the hassle of doing anything yourself. Don't want to spend hundreds of hours trying to lower your tax bill? They help you do that. Not sure how to rebalance your portfolio or what rebalancing is? They do it for you automatically. Wealthfront is trusted with over $28 billion in assets, helping nearly 500,000 people build their wealth. And the best part is their product is simple and powerful. It has a 4.9.5-star rating on Apple's App Store. To start building your wealth and get your first $5,000 managed for free for life, go to wealthfront.com/appstories. That's WEALTHFRONT.com/appstories to start building your wealth. Go to wealthfront.com/appstories to get started today. Our thanks to Wealthfront for their support of the show. Another one that I've been using is Cycle Through Panes, and I think you use this one as well,
Yes.
which if you're on a Mac and you use Command Tab, you'll be very familiar with this. This is another plugin that really just does one thing. It lets you cycle through multiple panes that you have open in Obsidian with a key command, and I believe it's Control Tab.
Yes.
Control Tab. And it's a great way to quickly move between the various documents that you have open. And there's not much else to say about it, but other than if you have that muscle memory of command tabbing through things a lot like I do, it's really nice to be able to do the same thing in Obsidian.
Very nice. Yeah, I like that plugin. The dictionary plugin, do you use this one, John?
I do, not a lot. I mean, I like having a dictionary available. When I'm on my Mac, I tend to use the built-in dictionary app quite a bit, actually, at least for the thesaurus and a few other things. But I've been experimenting with having this available inside the app itself. I like having tools in that right sidebar that I can just flick over to once in a while. And dictionary is one of those. And I wouldn't say it's one of the ones I consider essential, but it is nice to have because it includes definitions as well as synonyms and things like that. So you can get a pretty wide variety, a fair amount of information there. I don't know what source it's pulling from, but it's obviously some online dictionary source.
Yeah, I like it primarily so that I don't see, especially when I'm working on my Mac, I don't see the autocorrect underline for words that it doesn't know. Like, for example, it doesn't know the word tweetbot, and it underlines tweetbot as an error.
Right.
So with the dictionary, I can just say add to dictionary, and it learns the word, and it doesn't mark it as a grammatical error anymore. So that's why I've been using it, just to build my own custom dictionary of words that I use, and that shouldn't be considered mistakes.
Yep, that's good, especially since we do basically technical writing about technology, which has a lot of its, unique words.
Yeah. I want to mention one of our own plugins available for Club Mac Stories Plus and Premier members. It's called Export Markdown with Embeds. This is a plugin that we shared a few months ago on the Club Mac Stories website. You can go in there and download it if you're a Club Mac Stories Plus or Premier member. This is the plugin that I've built for myself because I've always wanted to have something like this. It gives you total control over how you can embed marked multiple notes inside of each other, and at the end of the process, compile it all as a single draft. So this is for all the writers out there who put together like a custom table of contents in Obsidian, and maybe you have multiple chapters of an essay or a book or a novel or a technical review that you are writing, and those chapters are individual notes. And then inside of those chapters, you have multiple notes embedded as sections of a chapter, and maybe a section as subsections. So like this, this nesting doll situation of like embeds within embeds within embeds. And with this plugin, you can compile a single table of contents containing these multiple embedded notes as a single sort of master copy, compiled copy of Markdown that even gives you control over how you want to optionally increase the level of headings for embedded notes, such as maybe when I'm editing a chapter, I want this chapter title to be an H1 heading in Markdown, but when it's exported in the compiled draft, it should become automatically an H2. And this plugin lets you do that. So this is the system that I always wanted to have for my iOS review. And I've decided that maybe there's enough writers out there who could use this very powerful system that I should say Finn Voorhees built for me. So good job, Finn. And I love this plugin, and hopefully others will too.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to working on that one with the next Mac OS review this coming summer. All right, Federico, let's talk about hotkeys. There's already the ability to assign a bunch of different hotkeys to different commands inside of Obsidian, just as it is off the shelf. And we talked about that a little bit before. But there's always more. And there are a bunch of different plugins that are available that add new hotkey combinations. And a few of the ones that I have tried are hotkeys for specific files, which allows you to assign a hotkey to a file, allowing you to open that file. Hotkeys for templates, which, as it sounds like, actually will trigger a template in your template library. And Hotkeys plus plus, which is one of my favorites because it has just kind of a random assortment of things that aren't in the base Obsidian plugin for hotkeys, such as toggling check marks on tasks that you have inside of Obsidian, or doing toggling between ordered and unordered lists, and toggling between block quotes and no block quotes. So it's little things like that make it really easy. I really like particularly the task one, because you can use Markdown syntax, kind of the task paper syntax, to create tasks within Obsidian. And this lets you check things off, whether you're in source code mode where you're just seeing the raw text, or you're in live preview where you're seeing a nice little, actual visual of a bullet that's either filled in or not. And Command M is what I've got assigned to this, and it lets me check things off really quickly.
Very nice. Yeah, I wasn't familiar with Hotkeys plus plus. That's I like the name. It reminds me of what is it? The apps by _David Smith, like Pedometer
Yes.
plus plus. It reminds me of that. Okay, I guess I should mention another plugin that we have made for Club Mac Stories Plus and Premier members. This one, it's the very originally named Markdown Insert plugin.
Right.
Don't let the inspired name fool you, though, because this is it does something and it does really well. Basically, it lets you turn selected text into a Markdown link only if you have a URL in your clipboard. So you select some text. So, for example, let's say you copy a link in Safari, and then you want to open your text editor in Obsidian and use that as a link. You select a word and you're like, okay, I want to make this word the link. You select the word, you hit a keyboard shortcut. In my case, I assigned this plugin to Command K so that it matches, the same shortcut in other Apple apps. Command K, and if you have a link in your clipboard, that selected word will be surrounded by square brackets, and the parentheses with the URL will be added after that, so that you just made a Markdown link. Even better, though, if you have an image URL in your clipboard. So if you have a URL that points to a JPEG file or a PNG file, and you're in a new line in Obsidian, and you hit the same keyboard shortcut, the Markdown image syntax will be added instead, and the cursor will be placed inside the square brackets if you wanna add an image caption. So if you want to add the alt text attribute to an image, the plugin does that for you. So it's really a contextual plugin that with a single command, it does different things depending on the kind of link that you want to insert. And that's my preferred behavior for text editing in Markdown. And again, Finn built this exactly the way I wanted, and I cannot think of any other way to deal with Markdown links in Obsidian, whether they are text links or image links, than the way this plugin does it. But I'm biased, but I also think it's the right way. So
I think it is too. It's the way IA Writer does it too, I believe. I'm a little surprised that it doesn't do the work this way by default. I'm just so used to it that it feels like the only natural way to do it too. Yeah. And I actually somehow disabled this when I was messing around with Obsidian one day, and I couldn't figure out. I was like, what's wrong? Why isn't this working the way it's supposed to? I had forgotten that it was even a plugin, and I had disabled it. But yeah, having that activated is fantastic. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Wix. Building a successful business online can be challenging. From creating a standout online presence and building a marketing strategy to the technical side of running a website, it's a lot to manage. That's where Wix comes in. It offers a complete business solution with all the features you need to create, manage, and grow online. You can build your website exactly the way you want with thousands of design features that have been created for you with your needs in mind. Wix has strong infrastructure in place, providing you with reliable hosting and fast loading times. So as a user, you'll have faster performing websites for your customers anywhere in the world. And to top it all off, you get marketing and business tools built into your website dashboard, making it even easier for you to reach the right audiences. So head on over to Wix.com and join the millions of people growing their businesses online. That's Wix.com. Our thanks to Wix for their support of the show. All right, Matter. We have not written a lot about Matter yet. I think that I'm getting ready to write about Matter, Federico. It's the Read It Later service that is kind of the hot thing right now. And it's really grown on me. It's improved a lot over time. And one of the things it lets you do is highlight your saved later articles. And those highlights can be saved into Obsidian using this plugin. That's really all it does, is just periodically syncs, I think once an hour, with the Obsidian API and brings over your highlights. So if you are a person who wants to collect highlights from things you're reading, this is a good way to go. Another one, which we'll get to, is Readwise.
Yes, and I also built some dark magic using DataView and this Matter plugin and some regex and JavaScript in DataView to build a table that shows me that sorts my articles by number of highlights. So this is only part of many things that I've been doing with the Matter API lately, and I'll get to those at some point over the next few weeks on Mac Stories. It's going to be fun.
All right, Federico, the next one I want to mention is Meta Edit, and this is by the developer of Quick Add.
Yes, this is a good one. Yeah.
It is, and it's one of those things that I kind of scratched my head when I first read about it, about how would this really work. But what it allows you to do is it allows you to move through data fields in an Obsidian document. So if you're using DataView, for instance, you can define your fields, your keys and values for your database using, if it's inline, you use 2 colons. And if it's in the front matter, I think you use 1 colon. But if you use Meta Edit, once you trigger that plugin, it throws up a list of all of the fields that you've got in that particular document in order. And you can then just quickly arrow down or click down to the one you want to fill, and it gives you a little text box to write in the value, and then it drops it into the correct place. It just saves you a lot of clicking and scrolling around between fields if you have a long document, so that you can fill something out very quickly. And this is one of the things that we talked about in the pre-show for App Stories Plus subscribers, about how I'm using this with a lot of the sponsor work that I do to fill out sheets for every single sponsor who is going to be on App Stories or on the site each week, which has a lot of different data fields. I use Meta Edit to do that really quickly.
Yeah, and even better is the fact that Meta Edit as an API, so that other plugins can interact with the Meta Edit functionality to update those front matter data fields in a programmatic fashion. This will make more sense when I will share the details of my latest DataView experiments in Obsidian, and how I've been using, for example, buttons to have interactive buttons in tables. And that button, when it's clicked, it uses the Meta Edit API to update one of the tags in the selected document. And that's really helpful if you want to do things like filtering your Obsidian database for, say, notes that have a front matter tag that says, I don't know, new or red, right? And you want to make sure that you have a way to quickly update those fields, that it's not, manually opening the file and clicking into the front matter section and typing in, yes or no, or done or new, or stuff like that. So the fact that Meta Edit as an API is also really helpful, because it means other plugins can take advantage of it. What's next on our list? So minimal theme settings. So this is a companion plugin for the excellent minimal theme for Obsidian. The way I see it, minimal theme is like, minimal is at this point, it's my default look for Obsidian. Like, I have forgotten how Obsidian look by default. Because when I think of Obsidian, I think of minimal theme. I really feel like minimal should become the default Obsidian theme on all platforms.
Yeah, I agree.
It's incredible, and the developer is continuously working on it. Just a few days ago, version 4.4 came out with supports for turning data view tables into card-like sort of galleries. It looks incredible. This is one of the things that I mentioned in the pre-show that I've been playing around for the past few weeks, having these card-based notes where I keep my YouTube videos that I want to watch later, or my rich links that I want to check out at some point in Safari. And minimal theme settings, it lets you control all sorts of aspects of minimal theme, like font size, color, the font you want to use, the kind of dark mode you want to use. And there's a whole world of visual settings as well as CSS classes that you can define in your notes if you want to override the appearance of Obsidian on a note-by-note basis. All of this is super well documented on the minimal theme and minimal theme settings documentation page. You can see all of these options, you can learn what they do, and you can read all the details about the CSS classes that are basically manual overrides for that you can drop into specific notes. So you can have a particular minimal theme look by default, but then you can override that look via manual CSS classes. It's a really powerful system, and I encourage you to go check out the documentation.
Yeah, I love the look of this theme myself, and I have not played around with the customizable CSS, but that is a neat option to have, especially if you have a very particular kind of note that you use over and over again and want it to look a specific way. I think maybe, Federico, we should close out with another small one because we've got some other big ones coming up very quickly in this list. But I want to mention natural language dates. This is a plugin that lets you use a trigger character, and I think the default is the @ symbol. So that if you type in, for instance, @today, then it'll drop in the date for today, and you can use @tomorrow or @next week. There's a bunch of dates that can be automatically generated using natural language. It does other things too, and one of the things that I'm actually doing that I've been experimenting with is timestamps, and you can define the way your timestamps look, and I'm tying those to a Stream Deck and using timestamping as I record app stories for picking up crosstalk and other things, which is something I'll write about in the future. But I've been experimenting with very easy push-button ways to generate lists of areas of episodes that need a little bit of editing. So the most common thing to use this for, though, is just dropping in dates. If you have due dates on tasks that you're keeping in Obsidian, or if you have daily notes and you want to change the date of it, or I don't know. I mean, dates are something that come up for me all the time, and I think they do for most people when they're taking notes on meetings or whatever it happens to be. And this is a very easy way to add those. All right, Federico. Well, it's great to be back. It's great to talk to you again. It's been a little while since you and I have had the chance to do that. Usually it's several times a week, but it's been a while. I want to thank our 3 sponsors for today's episode. That's MindNode, Wealthfront, and Wix. Today on the App Stories Plus pre-show, we talked all about our holiday experiments with things like Obsidian and other things. And if you want to subscribe to App Stories Plus, head on over to appstories.plus, where you'll find all the details about how we do extended shows that come out early most weeks, and we have high bitrate audio and no ads. All right, Federico, I think people can find you in the usual places.
That hasn't changed with the holidays. I'm still in the usual places. Yes.
You're in the usual places. That means Twitter and Instagram for the most part, where he is @Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm @John Voorhees in both. JOHNVOORHEES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.